Synergy Practices Podcast. My name is Darwin Navarrete. I'm joined by Sasha Huadpal and Artin Safarian. Today we're going to talk about comparing proposals, drawings, everything that has to do with that. It just seems like a simple concept, but being able to take two numbers and make sense out of it, sometimes it's a little bit more than that. So Sasha, let's get us started. What are your thoughts regarding the comparison of these proposals?
Right off the bat, the first thing I want to say, and we're going to touch on this multiple times, is no two proposals, especially in design build, are exactly the same. And what we want to do today is, we want to, by the time we're done talking today, we're hoping that you'll understand that that final number is not the only thing you should be looking at. That's not the end all be all. Yes, it's always attractive and exciting. You always want to go with a lower option, but today I want to go over why the final number shouldn't be your only decision maker and why the details matter. So what I'm actually going to do with the help of you guys is I'm going to go through all of the important sections that you may see in a construction proposal. And it's actually a good thing if you don't see one of these sections of a construction proposal, you can also keep in mind why did this person maybe not mention it. So we'll just kick it off. We're going to start with demolition. Demo is what you'll probably see on a proposal.
But before we get there, let's define, you're talking about design build proposal, where a client is asking 2 or 3 different contractors to provide a proposal before any drawings are done.
Correct, yes.
So basically, there is no architectural drawings, no MEP drawings. This is evaluating the space. Maybe there's a floor plan, maybe there isn't one, but hopefully there is one, so at least everything can direct on the floor plan. Because one thing I do want to clarify, a lot of people, when we talk about things like this, they think just because there's a floor plan, there are drawings, and they refer it to the drawings, but I got drawings. But I want to make sure we understand, this is a design build proposal, and the object today is, the idea today is to show how many different variables there are that can dictate the prices, and that's why no two proposals will even come the same, unless if you do the full set of drawings, full set of design, full set of architectural drawings, full set of MEP drawings, so you have your entire, basically the outline. And then if it comes to you, Sasha, it comes to me, it goes to Darwin, and we're all pricing it for different contractors, the prices is going to be according to all the specs that are on the drawing, which means at that point, the prices are going to be very closely together. The only thing that will be dictating is overhead, profit, and things that you know more of and I don't, and he knows less of and I do, and things like that could alter the prices. Otherwise, at that point, the prices will be similar, and I want to make sure I point that out to our listeners. That this is only design build, no drawing, just getting ideas of what the costs are going to be.
Okay, yeah, totally fair. Yeah, I understand. It's probably ideal to define what I mean by design build. Because there are also, something I want to say, not to get off topic, there are different kinds of design build.
Sure.
When you're doing a skyscraper, that can also be a design build. But we'll talk about it on a different podcast today. I want to focus on a design build construction proposal you would receive from a design build firm. Again, no architectural drawings, maybe a test bit. So let's start with demo, is what it might say on the proposal, or as it's known, demolition. Talk us through demo.
Well, demo, if you're looking at 2 different contractors, demo prices should not change much, unless if one contractor didn't look at the space, right, and one did. If I go and look at the space, I know approximately how much demo work I have to do. I know how many trucks I need to haul, everything that I break. I know what's involved into breaking stuff, if I have to shut down pipes, block the pipes, cap them or not cap them, reuse them, things like that. Or do I have to remove all the electricals or pull them up and save them in the future, duct work, and things like that. If I've seen it, you haven't seen it, you might be guesstimating the price, or I'm already looking at it and I'm including it. But if 2 contractors have seen the demo, you're going to see the demo cost should be very, very close to one another, unless if they're not including things in the demo cost and it's in some other area. Because again, one thing I want to mention, every contractor is going to break things down differently, but nonetheless, you want to see the breakdown so you can see how they're adding that final number. You mentioned, don't look at that number. I'm gonna add to that and say, you want to look at the number, but you want to see how they get to that number. It's almost like when you're in school, when your high school days, when you're doing mathematics, they're like, I want to see the work, how you end up to the final number. It's not the final number. The number could be right or wrong, but how you end up there is more important than what the number is.
Because then you catch someone like me using a calculator. And then you find out they don't really know exactly what they're, maybe they just look to the left or the right.
Well, it could be. That's actually the case. I mean, we do this when we offer our project management services. What do? We do the drawings, we send it to contractors. When the contractor sends us prices, right? We sit down, evaluate them, and ask the contractor questions to see what they've included and what they haven't included. Because until you understand the entire, work put together on the prices, you're not going to know what that number means. And you're right. That means you use the calculator. Maybe there's a lot of things you could have done and you could have included or not included. You gotta understand it. Don't just get it and look at the number. So.
Okay, yeah, demo's a simple one, and just make sure your contractors visit the site and know what they're doing. Construction is something that I want to spend a little bit of time on. The reason being is, before we can even talk about the details of what proposal of construction, let's talk about construction and what it means, what it might mean for one design build firm versus another design.
Could be broken down to different, correct?
It can be, and sometimes that can be confusing when you're comparing. It's always very difficult to compare apples to apples when you're comparing an apple to a watermelon or something like that. So construction, in this case, we're going to be talking about the actual framing, the ceiling, the finishing drywall work, basically what you might see on a test fit construction-wise. So we're not talking about flooring and paint. Construction.
So right there in there, size of the metal frames, right? So is it going to be 2.5-inch studs? Is it going to be 3 5/8-inch studs? Right? Insulation inside your rooms would matter. That'll determine if your cost is going to be high or low, right? One contractor can include it, one can not include it. The way you install your studs, right, is it going to be every 16 inches apart? Is it going to be every 24 inches apart? A lot of contractors do it every 24 inches apart, right? The question is, what are they giving you? Because that cost matches to the number they're giving you, right? I mean, the number matches to the work they're giving you. So you got to understand your work, not look at the number. Ceiling tiles, you mentioned, right? What kind of tiles? There are a lot of different types of tiles. Insulated tiles, non-insulated tiles. Grids, the ceiling grid that holds up the tile. Different types of grid. Which one did they include? Which one did they price, right? It can dictate the price. Blocking, supports. If you're a dental, we all know if you're a dental practice, you got ceiling lights that need support. You got TV monitors that need support if you're putting it on the ceiling. You got your panoramic machine, the CBCT machine that needs support. You got your, if you have restrooms, your ADA bars, anything that needs support, they included, they not included, right? On the construction section, these are the things that matter. Then the rooms, like what type of drywall finish are they including, right? All that stuff will determine the cost of that construction section, so to speak. But everybody's going to break it down differently.
Is it safe to say most contractors will use standard or basic materials to keep costs down?
Most contractors, that's how it's done. That's why most clients end up being frustrated at the cost when they're getting a price they think it's $200,000 and it goes up to 250 plus 300,000 is because in the beginning the contractor is just looking at things black and white. Mm-hmm. When the place gets designed, he now has an architectural drawing that's telling him what to price out. So naturally speaking, if he didn't know that's what he was supposed to price out, it's going to be low, but that doesn't mean you're going to get the look you want.
So I guess the advice I'd give is without knowing all this construction knowledge, we don't expect you to know the benefits of 2.5 inch versus 3 5/8. But what you can do is if you see a difference, or you see one contractor is doing 2.5 inch, one's doing 3 5/8. Ask questions. A lot of times people get nervous about asking. Just ask. The contractor must answer you truthfully. Force them to put. If one is giving you fine line ceiling grids, like you said, and you want the other one to do that, force them to put those words in their proposal. The number will usually go up.
Well, first you want to see breakdowns, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at every single section, exactly, you want to see the details in the breakdowns, right? And if it's not there, and you see it on the third contractor, ask the other ones. List your details. So the more details you see, the more you can associate the cost with what you're getting. Because unfortunately, when you're getting prices like this, it's not a tangible item. You're not buying a car that you're looking at. You're not buying this table right here. That's tangible. I can see them say, okay, Darwin, I'll buy this table for you $1,000. No, you're selling it to me for $1,500, right? We can negotiate on that. But when you're buying the stuff that's in someone's head, it hasn't been built, it hasn't been designed yet. The value is all over the place. There's too many variables.
Yeah, bottom line is that contractor is giving you what they think is best for you.
Correct.
What they think is best for you, not what is best for you.
Correct.
What they think.
Or their standards.
Or their standard.
Correct.
Yeah, and keep in mind that their standard could consist of something that maybe material-wise they bought a lot of that they want to use.
Yeah.
So there are different reasons, different ways contractors either cut corners or sometimes don't share all of the information. But like you're talking about, and we've said many times before here as an example, one size does not fit all. Ceiling grids are all not alike.
Sure. I do want to mention that, you mentioned cut corners. I don't think we're saying contractors cut corners. We're saying how a contractor prices out could be completely different from one contractor to another. That's what the details are important. I don't categorize that, in my opinion, as cutting corners. I just categorize that as their style of pricing. And if you know what they're giving you, that's not cutting corners.
And see, when I hear that, I see cutting corners. And let me tell you why I see that.
Sure.
Because for the simple reason is, if that's what the contractor is showing you, they know what they're doing. They know what's necessary. They know what's required. Whether they show you that, that's a way for me, my brain tells me cut corners in the sense of, now what are they not telling me? They're cutting corners in the sense of, hey, let me kind of hang that hanging fruit right in front of your face, give you a little bit, but not give you all of it so I can hit you later.
But I would also argue and say, you're right if it comes to the quality of the construction. And
Sure.
then when I talk to you about like frames, what size frames and how far apart the frame should be, yes, I agree with you. But if we're talking about aesthetics, I can't say a contractor by bringing the aesthetics down is cutting corners. Because where do you draw the line? At what point are the aesthetics better, right? Because you can go in top-notch aesthetics and there could be something better than what you actually said. So aesthetically, I would not agree with the statement, but yes, you're right. Quality-wise, maybe yes, you have a point that usually contractors know what they're doing. Maybe they're cutting corners.
Okay.
Go to the next section.
And we may come back to construction elements as we're going through these other sections, so keep a look at. Next thing I want to talk to you guys about is finished carpentry, specifically doors and door hardware. This is a big one that when I'm comparing proposals, I'll see. I'll let you guys speak. Tell me what you guys think about doors and what to look out for when comparing two proposals.
Well, doors, obviously, you can do hollow doors or you can do solid doors, right? Solid wood doors are what you should be getting.
They're heavier, they're less sound.
Yeah. The doors depend on the hardware as far as like hollow metal frames, right? Which is normally, that's how construction is done. Height of the door matters. What type of hardware you're getting, lock sets, what kind of hinges and stuff like that you're getting, that matters. And then the number of doors, right? If you don't have a floor plan, or if you only have a floor plan, right? That's not guaranteed that's going to end up being your floor plan. Today's day one. You looked at the space, you got a floor plan from somebody, either a designer or a contractor or an equipment person, right? That floor plan is not approved. That floor plan is day one. That floor plan can change.
Yeah.
And you might add doors. You might have 4 extra doors. You might have 3 less doors than you already got priced out. So that will dictate the price. And if doors are going out, then the door frames are out, then hinges are out, then locks and stuff, they're out. But generally speaking, sizes of the door, the height, the width of the door matters, quantity of the doors, and what hardwares and frames come with the door.
Okay.
And one more thing I didn't say, there are 2 types of doors you can buy, right? You can buy a factory finish door also versus a field finish door. A factory finish door comes already here with the factory. It could be laminated or it's finished by the factory, or it could be a field finish door where it's going to be a little more cost effective because you finish it on the field.
Yeah, one piece of advice I give when it comes to door counts and door pricing, have the contractor put in the proposal, Art said it, yes, it's going to change, but if you know it's going to be 16 doors and it's $500 or $550 door, have them put every additional door $550. That way you know if your door count goes from 20 to 15, they owe you $550 times 5 for the amount of doors.
And also style of it too. Like, is it going to be a solid door? Is it going to be a glass insert door?
Yes, have them at it.
If it is a glass insert door, is it a full glass insert door? Is it a half glass insert door? All that stuff will,
Frosted
glass, right? So things like that will definitely affect the price.
Okay, so let's go from there and jump into paint and wall coverings. This one's something we all know, something we all at some point in our lives experience something to do with paint. What should you look out for when comparing two paint and wall covering proposals?
Generally speaking, I think paint is one area where you're going to see a good closer number together from one contractor to another, because most contractors are not going to include wall covering, as in like wallpaper and like things that go on the wall. They're just going to include paint. The quality of paint would matter and how many times they're putting it on. Generally speaking, we like to put the paint on 3 times, so we do 3 coats.
3 coats.
There are contractors that do 2 coats. Most of them do 2 coats. So I mean that you're not going to see a major, and paint is not a huge cost in the office, so you're not going to see a big difference between one contractor and the other.
I know a lot of our callers and clients ask, so I just want to ask it out loud. Should you specify with your contractor eggshell versus matte, or should that be something that comes up during the design process? A lot of people have actually recently been calling in and saying, what's the best commercial paint type I can put on my wall?
I mean, you can specify it, but that means nothing, because I think the designer will then later on specify it or re-specify it. So you could, but I don't think that dictates the cost of the paint. It's more on the finish what the cost of paint. And the reason we don't do eggshell in commercial spaces, because when the light shines, you're going to see some imperfection of the walls, right? You're going to see the waviness of the wall. So, natural light can cause that to happen. So I would say, my opinion, I think matte is a better finish in commercial spaces.
I think that's what I was looking for. Big area that El Burritos deal with all the time. Electrical. This is one of the areas, other than construction and a couple others, where the price can be not hundreds of dollars of difference, but can be up to $10,000 difference in electrical. I just want to start by saying, we said it in construction, I'm going to say it here, the details are so critical in the electrical section. If somebody just puts lights and plugs and the other guy or girl's got 15, 16, 20 bullet points of information, something's up. So guys, take us through electrical. Talk to me about what to look out for and the big things that can affect costs.
Well, I mean, let's first talk about, there's a biggest thing that can affect your cost. And unfortunately, there's a lot of contractors that can look at your space, and there are some contractors out there that are not knowledgeable enough when it comes to electricity. A lot of people don't understand electricity and power. So the biggest cost that I'll come back to is going to be your service that you're getting in your space. But let's put the service aside for a second and talk about what's inside the space that you would know about, right? Obviously, lighting is a key, right? What kind of lighting you're getting will make a big difference on what the cost difference is.
Can you define what kind of lighting?
We're talking about LED lights, recessed lights. Are we talking about 2x4s? Are we talking about 2x1s? Are we talking about decorative lighting? They're going to be pendant lighting. They're going to be chandeliers. See, there's so much things that you might be talking to a client. You might price out differently. I may be pricing it out differently. He may be pricing it out differently. And that's only us 3, let alone all the contractors and what they're thinking and how they're pricing, right? And then the amount of light. You want to make sure, a contractor knows that what area they're covering, so it's not dark in spots, right? So the amount, the quantity, the lighting, the exit signs, what kind of exit signs, right? They're pricing out emergency lighting, so that's the lighting package. The second thing that's pretty much more obvious is your dedicated lights. If you're dealing with dental medical spaces, mostly dental, you have a lot of dedicated lights. So this is where we always say about work with a contractor that's done dental, because if they've done it, they already know where you have to dedicate lights. It's not a surprise, right? Just your sterilization center alone, you have 5 dedicated lines that you're going to need at the minimum, depending on the size of your installation, right? So you don't want a contractor to come back and say, no, we only have 2, oh, you want 3 more?
Change order.
This is going to be a change order, right? And we've had other topics on change orders, so we don't want to get too much into change orders. But this is where the cost will vary, right? How many operators you're going to have, obviously, because you need to make sure each chair has their plug. You want to make sure each 12 o'clock unit has their own plugs that needs it. And then having X-ray on the walls. A lot of people, back in the day, it was inevitable. You had an intraoral X-ray on the wall. Nowadays, with the portable X-rays, that's kind of, being less and less done, where people are buying portable X-rays. So you don't have that electrical connection. And going back to construction, you don't have that support that you needed either on the walls, right? So you want to see if they are, how much they've included. They include, 6 X-ray units on the wall or 0 X-ray units. That can change the cost, right? But going back to the biggest cost in the electrical section could come in your service, right? So what do I mean by service? That's the main line coming into your space. A lot of contractors, when they look at the building and look at your space, if they don't know you need a transformer, or they don't know it needs to come from the main electrical room, or they think that the panel you have there is good to go, then they're going to price it out differently, thinking they can utilize a power panel that they're seeing over there, but you can't use it, right? Whereas in another expert contractor, he already knows it, he's tested it, he's looked at everything, he's bringing you more power, he's bringing you another panel that you definitely need, right? Now his costs are higher, but if you don't question why, you'll never know the answer.
Right.
You go with the lower contractor, now all of a sudden you have that cost that you never knew about, right? So again, just because, the costs are low, that doesn't mean, that's the lowest or the better or the cost-effective contract. That just means you got to do more due diligence to understand it better and then go with the person that you want to.
Yeah, we said it in the beginning. We're not talking about $500. Art mentioned a transformer in a new service. You're talking in the $10,000 range.
Well, it depends on how far away you have to go to.
Could be a lot more, could be, yeah.
Especially right now, wire, copper is expensive, right? So if you have to go 100 feet or you have to go 300 feet, right?
It's going to be pricey.
It's going to be pricey.
Worst case, you're going through different floors. Let's say you're bringing so electrical, you mentioned lighting package, you mentioned service. I said in the beginning, the details in the electrical are critical. If you see one contractor is adding a transformer and the other one isn't, you need to ask why. He or she might see something that the first contractor missed and is doing the right thing by giving you a heads up. Because you want you and your bank to know what the real cost is. Right. Change orders are bad, not just because of cost and time, like Darwin has said multiple times, but they're a problem because your bank is now, you might be stretching your funds.
And you may not see that. You may not see one contractor adding a transformer. But what you're going to see is a difference in prices, right? The minute you see a $4,000 or $5,000 difference in prices, now you want to ask questions, not to one contractor, to both contractors. Because you want to understand what are they including and what are they excluding, right? And why is there a $5,000? In this electrical, it's interesting. Back in my older days, when I first started doing this, I was evaluating a bid on a project where one of the contractors was extremely low on the entire price, right? And then I was going over it with an expert that was kind of showing me the ropes and stuff. And we evaluated, we looked at things, and we saw that there was a huge difference on electrical. Now this was a big project, so the difference in electrical was about $60,000, right?
A lot of money.
So we're evaluating the project, and then he's like, this is where it doesn't make sense, And then we looked at it, I'm like, okay, so what do we do? I'm like, he's like, we need to call when we become the contractor and talk. When we sat down in front of both of the contractors, we realized one of the contractors had completely missed putting the lighting package that we had asked for on the drawings. He was given a different lighting package. Now, this happened to be a huge, big space, right?
It's a lot of lights.
A lot of lights, so therefore there was a big difference on the thing, right? But you know what? You don't just go with the lowest bid and then find that out later. Because part of evaluating a bid is to understand if someone did make a mistake, where the mistake is, and give them an opportunity to fix it. It's not, let's hide the truth and go with it and make him suffer, right? Because hey, anyone knows that if you underbid something by $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, you may not be able to finish your project. I am going to have a problem with you as the owner, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to have that headache later on. I'd rather make sure you looked at it, you've covered it, you've looked at it multiple times. If I feel like you made a mistake and you say you made a mistake, so okay, let's take it back, fix it. Let's make sure there are no other mistakes, especially if I want to continue with you, so that I can do this properly.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because the idea here is not to say don't trust contractors.
No,
give them a chance. Okay, you're missing a transformer, please include the cost. I want to see this. So I'm actually really glad you said that. Moving on to fire alarm. This isn't as a detailed area as some of the other areas, but take us through it.
Sure. Fire alarms is, again, when you look at two codes from two different contractors, fire alarm is another area where it should be very close to one another. Yeah. Fire alarm is fire marshal related stuff. Every contractor has to follow what the fire marshal says. So if I'm going to put, and we're talking about putting devices, running the wires and things like that to the fire alarms. If I'm going to put 10 strokes, I calculated 10 strokes, you would have most likely calculated 10 strokes because the fire marshal has 10 strokes. Mm-hmm. Therefore, the costs are going to be the same. You're going to see minor differences in fire alarm. And if you see major differences, that's a red flag right there. Then you need to ask a lot of questions, because I can't even think of any reason why one contractor will have a fire alarm cost of $12,000 and one will have $2,000. Yeah. Unless if the house panel is full and one of them didn't realize it and the other one did.
Yeah, there aren't really fire alarm finishes per se. You have to do what the fire alarm specifications require.
Correct.
Okay, plumbing, another one of the big areas where costs can differ significantly. Tell me, other than obviously number of sinks, I know we're going to talk about that today. Tell me about why one contractor might be a lot more expensive in a dental operatory sense versus another one.
Sure.
And we'll also talk about the sinks.
So one is you got to be code savvy, right? If I'm going into the space and I'm looking at a retail space where it's not connected to the common areas, right? I already know this space is going to need to have, depending on the square footage and your occupancy load, right? I need, if you're above 25, 30 occupancy load around there, the place is going to need to have 2 restrooms, right?
Yeah.
So in my plumbing costs, I'm already including those 2 restrooms, right? If another contractor is not savvy enough or understands that enough, he may be only including 1 restroom, right? That already costs me. Then I know by code there is a mop sink, utility sink that you need, drinking fountain that you need. These are musts. I'm including that, right? Contractors do not include that. Then you're going to be short on the cost, right? Then of course you're looking at sinks. Then to go back to your operatory questions, delivery lines, suction, air. Are we going to have bottled water? Is it going to be city water? What am I giving you? Right? What is the other contractor giving you? These are things that are adding to the cost of backflow preventers required by code. Am I including that? Am I not including that? Right? So these are things that could definitely add cost on the plumbing.
Especially if you have sticking with dental, especially if you have a non-dental contractor.
Sure.
Residential, it's pretty simple: hot water, cold water, sink, faucet. Dental, they might not know. Let's not even get into nitrous today.
Right.
You got it.
Nitrous lines is another one.
That's plumbing. Right. That's plumbing. People don't realize.
You mentioned residential. Then comes what type of pipe, right?
Mm-hmm. PVC,
copper, CPVC or PVC.
Copper.
Schedule 40 on the ground. Things like that could affect the cost depending on what contractor is doing what.
Yeah. So basically, for the plumbing section. I actually have a question for both of you, just based on all the other contractors we've all come across. Do most contractors, in a medical and dental sense, include faucets and sinks in the proposals you guys have seen? The actual faucets and sink fixtures?